We're in this together now.
We are in this together.
Now it's me and you.
But I'm trusting you as the pilot.
Well, you're the pastor, so you should be praying or something.
Hope I don't disappoint you.
I hope I don't fumble this bag harder than you. Bloopers.
Yes, bloopers reel.
This is all going into the bloopers.
So far, I've been excellent.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Alive to Love podcast. And I'm joined with a very special guest. We have Rick Tustin here with us, and he is from Grace Fellowship Church in Mokina, Illinois, a south suburb of Chicago, right?
Yep, you got it.
Is it a small town?
It is a small town.
Okay.
About 12,000 people.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. So gives that small town vibe, lots of friends, good family there.
Yeah, great friends, great family.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Great place to grow up.
I grew up just a little bit south of there, but yeah, the place where I grew up was fantastic, and I have plenty of family and friends who are from Mokina, and it too is just a really great place to grow up.
That's awesome. As you can see, we are in a little bit of a different environment. As you all know, me and my wife work for Healing Rain Ministries here in Nicaragua, and this week we had the privilege to host a beautiful team, and Pastor Rick was one of the members on this team this week. Yeah. And so we're here on his last night in Nicaragua, and we're here at a hotel across the street from the airport, and I just wanted to sit down and have him on the podcast. So Rick, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I was originally a high school teacher. I spent almost 20 years teaching high school history. I was a baseball coach, a football coach, a swim coach, basketball coach. So I coached a lot of different things.
So you like sports?
I love sports. And because I was involved with teenagers about 20 years ago, when I started going to the church where I'm still at today, they said, hey, we need somebody who would lead our youth group, and you like teenagers. Would you do the job? And I said, well, what does it pay? And they said, no, it's voluntary. And I said, yes, I will. I'm your guy.
Hey.
And so about 22 years ago, when my wife and I got married, we started to go to a church together. We knew that we wanted Christ to be the center of our life together. And so, we started there. And while I was at Grace, I got to do lots and lots of different ministry. Got to work with the little guys, got to work with Vacation Bible School, got to be a youth leader. I got to be a worship team leader. The pastors there gave me opportunities to teach Bible studies and to preach on Sundays. And so I didn't realize at the time that they were leading me into something greater. And during those years, my frustration with the public education system in the United States was really increasing. I was just growing less and less. I enjoyed my job less and less as a teacher. The kids were great, but just some of the things that were happening in the schools, I didn't enjoy it as much anymore. At the same time, I was really loving ministry. And so I felt like God was doing something in my life. I didn't know exactly what that was. So my wife and I just started to pray about it. And I really felt like there was this tug toward ministry, but I felt like, who am I to do ministry? I haven't been to Bible college. I've never been formally trained in anything like that. And little by little, God just kept showing me that there was work for me to do in ministry. And there's a very long story, but it culminated with this. My pastor called me one day, and out of the blue, he said, I need to talk to you after school. Come on out to the church. So I did. And when I arrived at the church, he brought me into our sanctuary, and it was just my pastor and me, nobody else. I thought for sure I was in trouble. I thought that we did something with the youth group, or we broke something. That's exactly what I felt like. Yeah. But he surprised me. He said, hey, I wanted to tell you, I've accepted a preaching position in Colorado. And I said, wow, that's great, because I knew that he always wanted to go live in the mountains.
Yeah.
And I said, well, that's cool, but why are you telling me? He said, actually, you're the first person I'm telling. My parents don't know, my kids don't know, and nobody else in the church knows. And I asked one more time, well, why are you telling me? And he said, because I'm going to suggest to the church that you become the pastor here at Grace Fellowship.
Wow.
And so I felt like, okay, God, I don't always get your messages very clearly, but this one seems pretty clear to me. And for the last 10 years now, I've been a pastor of one of the most awesome churches in the whole world.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So 10 years.
10 years.
And pastor was never on your agenda of things that you wanted to complete in life at the beginning.
No, not at all.
And like, tell me a little bit about your childhood and like how you even came to know Jesus in the first place.
Yeah. So my mom and dad got married right out of high school. They had me a year later. They were young, and my dad was working real hard. By the way, I should say I had the greatest parents in the world. I know a lot of people feel that way. My parents were the greatest parents in the whole world. So I have no complaints about my childhood, the love my mom and dad gave me. But that said, my dad was really invested in making a good life for our family. And so he was very busy, and he worked and he traveled. And by the way, he did that. He gave us an incredible life, as I just said. But I had some friends in our neighborhood who their dad was a little bit different. He was a custodian. He didn't make a ton of money, but he was home every day at 4:15, and he would bring us outside and play wiffle ball and football and just every kind of thing. He was our little league coach. And so that family really, for me, they became, they were my brothers. And this was almost like stepmom and stepdad. And the guy's name was Mr. O. I call him Mr. O. And Mr. O was a Christian. So I would always try to swindle my mom and dad and let me have sleepovers there. And so I slept over at their house almost every weekend. And on Sundays, we went to church. In the summertime, we went to Vacation Bible School. And that family used to have a Bible study at their house. I think it was Friday nights. And from the time I was like 8 or 9 years old, I would be playing with the boys, but we were within earshot of what was happening at the kitchen table. So I was hearing these things about Jesus, and I just felt like I was being pulled, being drawn toward that table. And eventually I worked up the courage to just kind of go over and ask a few questions about Jesus. They welcomed me in. And from that point, the Lord blessed me with just faith, because I believed everything that I was hearing, everything that we were reading. I just believed that Jesus was God's Son, that He came into this world to rescue sinners, that He died on a cross to pay a price that I could never afford, and that He rose from the grave. And I've held on to that faith my whole life. Haven't always walked in it. You know, like a lot of people, I've had some seasons where I was following the world and living the worldly life. But praise God that He pulled me back and He said, I've got something bigger, and more importantly, I've got something better for you. And I have found that a life with Jesus is so much better than anything the world ever promised me.
That's an incredible testimony.
Can I tell you something that is better? And I should have said this at the beginning. I've been married for 22 years to an amazing woman. My wife's name is Janine. She is one of the most beautiful singers you will ever hear in your whole life.
Really? She sings?
Oh, yeah.
We spent a whole week together. I had no idea that your wife
She sings on our worship team, and she always tells me this is cheesy, but she actually does sound like an angel.
Wow.
She's also an incredible kindergarten teacher, and so she's just great. And then I have these 3 amazing kids. I've got 3 sons. They are 12, 14, and 16, and they're amazing. I love them.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Beautiful family. I have a couple questions in regards to your father.
Yeah.
And I know that it was, as you said, he did an amazing job providing for your family.
He did.
And he worked hard, and he was the businessman that went out and provided and was the provider for your family. It's a great role, and I think as a man and as a father, that has to be present.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there has to be a mix, though, between him and Mr. O? Because it seems like Mr. O, your neighborhood friend, dad, he had a huge impact in your life.
He did.
And showed you things and spiritually was almost a father to you. And that's such an awesome thing too. And so for us fathers, future fathers, or fathers who maybe are watching this, what advice would you give them as far as how to balance business and also like a spiritual, loving father that has time for the things that seem significant maybe, but matter more than you think?
Yeah. So I'll answer your question, but I want to preface this by saying some people have a dad who he was just a great provider. My dad was a great provider, but he also taught us a lot of great lessons. He was a good role model. He showed my brother and me, I have one brother, he showed my brother and me a great work ethic. It taught us good values. He was a pretty tough disciplinarian, but for the right reasons, wanted to keep us out of trouble. But the advice I would give to any father is this: your first ministry is your wife and your children. And that has to be your first priority your first priority, of course, is your own relationship with Jesus, because you can't lead anyone unless you're following Jesus. But if you're following Jesus, one of the things that he tells us as men is that we are to lead our homes well, that we are to love our wives as Christ loved the church, which means sacrificially, and that we are to train our children onto the right path so that when they're older, they won't depart from that path. And so I truly believe that. And so practically speaking, I would say that as men, we need to demonstrate to our children what a loving man looks like, that he will sacrifice for his wife, that he will put her priorities above his own, that he will love her. And I don't just mean like have that little pitter-patter feeling in your heart, and I'll probably talk about that more later, but I'm talking about love in action. I'm talking about where you serve your wife. You demonstrate that for your kids, because if you have daughters, we want our daughters to know that's the kind of man you need to be looking for, honey. Yeah. And if we have sons, we want our sons to know that's the kind of man that you need to be for the woman that God has ordained to be your wife.
That's true.
I think as dads, we need to be praying for our kids, sons or daughters, praying for their future spouses, praying that God would open their eyes and let them see the truth, praying that God would soften their hearts and open their ears and soften their minds so that they can receive the truth. And then as dads, we need to be the proclaimers of that truth. We don't just send them to church and let the church do its job. We don't just expect mom to teach the Bible stories and pray with the kids before bed. We lead that charge. And even if we don't necessarily know all the Bible stories, or even if we don't feel like we're eloquent enough to say those prayers with our kids, we can at least be the ones to say, family, let's gather together because it's Bible time. Or family, let's gather together because it's prayer time. And even if we're going to let mama lead that stuff, daddy's the one who says, this is important, let's get together and do it.
That's very true. And honestly, talk is cheap oftentimes.
Amen.
In many different scenarios, but your actions need to represent what you believe. And it's the same. That's like faith and actions are corresponding.
Yeah.
People go, are you saved by your actions? No, you're not saved by your actions. You're saved by your faith. But when your faith is genuine, the actions always follow.
Amen.
When your love is genuine for your wife, for your kids, for your family, your actions will represent what your heart believes,
I think loves. Sometimes people get confused by our message as Christians, because on one hand we say, no, you're saved by faith alone, not by works, lest any man should boast. Let's talk for just a minute about James, because what you said ties right into one of the things he wrote. Yeah. He said that faith without works is dead. It's not real faith. So there's that contradiction. Sometimes people will say, well, wait a minute, you said it's only by faith, and now you're saying that faith and works are tied together. Yeah. But I love what you said, because I think what you were saying was, we are saved by our faith, but our works are evidence that faith is indeed real. Yeah. Right? And Jesus said, you want to know what a tree?
That's exactly what I was saying, because I can sit here and tell you about making a podcast, or I can sit here and tell you about all of these dreams I have in my heart about me wanting to lose weight by Christmas. Yeah. But if at Christmas I look the exact same, you're gonna be like, talk is cheap, Yeah. But if I can put my actions behind the goals and the things that I have in my heart and in my life that I want to accomplish, the things that I believe in, the things that are real to me, and the things that I love, you will always see the actions following as a response to what I believe and what I love.
Yeah, I mean, Jesus said, if you want to know what kind of tree you're looking at, look at its fruit. Yeah. I mean, orange trees don't grow apples.
Exactly.
Right?
No, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
What are some of the major differences you've noticed between the United States and Nicaragua? Between culture, nature, food, people, like everything you've experienced, what would you say are like some of the differences?
All right, so the very first difference I have to bring up is that in the United States, we drop our toilet paper in the toilet and we flush it away.
That's true.
Here in Nicaragua,
we don't have that luxury.
Toilet paper goes into the garbage can. So that was I had to get used to that. I had to learn a little bit about that.
It's interesting, isn't it?
And then I learned that in the United States, I think everywhere we have toilets. In Nicaragua, sometimes you don't have toilets.
Did you have to use one of those holes?
No, brother.
this week?
I prayed every day, Lord, help me have some control over my body. Oh, man. And he answered that prayer.
Lord, Please constipate me.
So, that's kind of silly. That's a funny thing. One of the big differences is where I live in Illinois, the land is just totally flat. It's flat. There's nothing really exciting about the land itself. I mean, I'm close to Chicago, and so you can go down and see Lake Michigan, the buildings in the city. That's all kind of cool to see.
That's awesome.
But, that's all man-made stuff. Here in Nicaragua, I mean, as soon as the plane gets close to the country, you look out the window and you just see this amazing landscape. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. Then you land and you get in the van and you start to drive through the country, and you've got these incredible mountains. And then you guys told me that some of them aren't just mountains, they're volcanoes.
Yeah.
It's so green and so lush. And I mean, Nicaragua is an incredibly beautiful country. And I look at that and I think, how amazing of an artist is God. He didn't have to make this beauty.
Yeah.
And why did he do that? And the only reason I have is he just wanted us to see how awesome he is.
Honestly.
I mean, why are there billions and billions of stars and galaxies? And I think just simply to proclaim God's greatness. The food here is delicious. Every single meal we had this week was absolutely delicious. And I'm not just saying that for a podcast. Like, I'm a foodie.
You liked it?
Yeah. I really, really enjoyed the food. The food has a lot of flavor. There was nothing that was bland. So the food that was cooked, it had real flavor. I love that. You guys drink tons and tons of water and juice. And I think that makes you all healthy.
Yeah.
I did miss my pop.
Yo, but hey, you can tell he's from Chicago. He says pop.
That's right, yeah. Not my soda, but my pop.
How have you enjoyed being in Nicaragua this week? And what would you say for you personally are some of the biggest highlights and experiences that you've got to have this week?
Yeah, well, I should first tell you, I was nervous about coming. I joined a team that I didn't know. That team turned out to be awesome. But I was just nervous about coming to a place where I didn't really speak the language very well. I didn't know how I'd be able to minister to anybody in Nicaragua. I didn't really know the culture very well. So there was a lot of unknowns for me. But I will say, and this may embarrass you just a little bit, but the second I got through the airport and came out to meet your mom and dad and to meet you and your beautiful wife, Pamela.
She's off camera right over here.
Yeah, but she is beautiful.
She is.
good call,
yeah. That was nice, right?
Just the genuine joy, the welcome, the brotherhood. There was a real brotherhood. It was real, it was sincere, it was tangible. Yeah. And so right off the bat, that made me feel really welcome. It gave me kind of a joy. And it gave me some energy to want to serve. And I thought, okay, so that's cool. Like, you guys are the missionary family. Of course you're going to be that way. Yeah. But then when I met the rest of your team, the whole team is that way. The team, they welcomed us. They translated for us. And the servants' hearts, like, I don't see that where I live. I mean, we've got some great servants. Even in my church, I can name like a dozen people right now that are great servants. Yeah. But just as a general rule, I don't see that where I live. But here, no matter who was called upon from your team, everybody, without complaint, without hesitation, immediately stepped up to do whatever the task was. It didn't matter if it was taking out trash or translating for somebody or carrying really heavy stuff to a vehicle. Like, everybody just steps up and they do things, and they do it with a smile. So that's been amazing.
We are blessed to have an incredible team, honestly, and it's an honor of my life to serve alongside them. And honestly, it's just because of God that we have such amazing people that work with us, and they make everything we do possible. It wouldn't be possible. I mean, me and my family, we've been doing ministry for 12 years, but at the level and the excellence that we're doing it now, it's all because of the beautiful team that God's put together. And each one of us has different talents and ways that we add to each other and build this beautiful unit. You know, a quarterback's only as good as his receivers, and a running back as his linemen, you know. And so football analogy. He likes football. Hope you do too. But it's like one of the most beautiful things to see how a team really functions together.
I mean, one of the things that I shared with your team, and I'd like for the whole world to know, is that the love that they have for one another, it's so evident.
Yeah.
And so it's the first night we were here, when we got back to our rooms, I opened my Bible and I looked at John 13. And I read a little bit down into the 30s. I think it's verse 35, where essentially what Jesus says, I'll just paraphrase. He says, look, the world will know that you're my disciples by the way that you love one another. And one of the things that was so, like, obviously evident, and it was real, man. It was sincere. It was authentic, was that your team, they love each other. They laugh together, they play together, they work hard together, they serve together, there's joy. And then beyond that, they take a group of strangers from another country that they've never even met before, and they pull us into that. They invite us into that, yeah, and make us feel like we've been there with them the whole time. And so we're playing, silly games like Mafia, and like we're cutting jokes up on each other, and I mean, we're just having fun, making fun of each other the way we try to speak each other's language. Yeah. And all, I mean, we're just having fun. And at the same time...
You should tell them about El Gallo.
Oh, yes. And at the same time, we're doing God's work. And so I try to do God's work because we did a skit. We did a skit at a number of schools because we wanted to bring the gospel to the schools. And so one of my jobs was to play the role of anger. And so I had this little costume on, and I was supposed to go out and be angry. And so I thought I was playing it. I thought I should get an Academy Award.
If I have a picture, I'm going to put it right here, and you guys are going to see this or blow it up on the screen. You're going to laugh. This is ridiculous.
So my job was to keep another character who was keep calm away from our main character. And so I came out onto the scene, and I was like stalking and kind of looking what I thought was a predator, and the way that I thought anger, kind of creeps up on us and wants to attack. So that's what I was doing. And I did this at like 3 different schools. And then afterward, I found out that the team gave me a nickname, that the team named me El Gallo. And I speak just enough Spanish to know that El Gallo is the rooster. And so now I am forever known in Nicaragua as the rooster.
It's because he had this little flame on his head, if you can see the picture. And I'm telling you guys, he looked like a rooster running around. And we were all cracking jokes like he looked like the worst superhero I've ever seen in my life, like a parody of a superhero. Like, honestly, it was amazing. But
I was an angry rooster.
Hey, one way or another, the kids loved it, and the message came across.
It did.
And that's the funny part, and like what we were talking about just the other night, is that in our imperfections, like that was definitely not the best drama we've ever done, like ever, and it's like not 100% perfect. Like everything in our program, it wasn't like the best ever, this big extravagant thing, fireworks going off and everything. And it was imperfect, just like we are.
Yeah.
But God used that to do some of the most incredible things I've ever seen in Healing Rain Ministries this week.
I didn't know exactly what to expect, but what I saw from your team and what I experienced personally is kind of what we talked about earlier, right? Love is not just a feeling in your heart. It's not just when you get butterflies in your stomach or when your heart starts to race or, your cheeks get red because you see a pretty girl. That's not love. Love is actually when you're willing to sacrifice, when you're willing to serve, when you're willing to put others first, and when you're willing to do it without complaining. And that's what I saw from the team. The other thing is, I think love has another component. Paul says that love is not selfish. Love does not demand. And every place we went this weekend, everything that we got to do, it was a selfless act of love. There was never a demand for a return. Look, we were hoping for, we were praying for, and we were ready for people to respond to the Holy Spirit. Yeah. We were ready for people to respond to God's call in their life, but that wasn't the demand. And so we went to the school and we painted the school, and it didn't matter whether the people let us pray for them or if they gave their lives to Christ. Like, I'm not saying that didn't matter, because that was important, but we were going to paint the school no matter what. Yeah. We were just going to love them. I saw the same thing when we brought food into one of the poorest communities I've ever seen. And yet these people had the most amazing courage. They would invite us into their home. Yeah. They would be willing to let us pray for them and even share some of their struggles so that we could pray for their struggles. Yeah. They were willing to let us tell them what we believed about Jesus. And here is the most amazing thing for me. I asked many of them, would you tell me what you believe about Jesus? Imagine a foreigner walks into your house one day and says, hey, why don't you tell me what your faith looks like? Or can you explain what you believe about God? Like that's a tough question. Yeah. I mean, it's a tough question. And people were willing to share. I'll do something for you if you'll do something for me. I never saw that once this week. Whether it was from your team or the people we visited or the work that we did in the schools, it was never, we're going to do something for you if. It was, we're going to do something for you because. Yeah. And the because is because Jesus said, the world will know you are my disciples by the way you love one another. And that doesn't just mean your team loving each other. Yeah. It means loving the world. Exactly. And man, you guys are loving people in the world. And they have no choice but to see that you are truly Jesus' disciples. You asked me at one point in this trip, hey, what will you take home? What will be your highlight? There are several things. I looked at people and I saw how people here face real challenges and real difficulties with incredible dignity, with strength. And that may come to the place where I live. Right now, we don't have that, but it may be coming. And so I'm not going to go home and tell people what I taught. I'm going to tell people what I learned. One of the things I learned is how to face struggles and how to face challenges with dignity and compassion and courage and love, right? And all those things. But the other thing I'm going to tell people, and I think this is my greatest takeaway, is how love is not conditional. Yeah. Jesus didn't come into the world and save the people if he came and died for all sinners, right? If Jesus really looked at all my sins, he would not love me. But he does love me. He knows all my sins. He knows what a dirty rat I am, and he loves me anyway. What does Paul write in Romans? He said that God demonstrates his love. He doesn't just say it or write it in a book. He demonstrates his love in that even when we were sinners, Christ came and died for us. Imagine every other world philosophy, every other religion, every other faith system in the world, they tell you this. They say, hey, you get your life cleaned up, and when you're clean enough, then the God will accept you. Our God says, you can't get clean on your own. Yeah. You need me to clean you up, and so come to me as you are. I will receive you, and I will transform you. And that gets back to what you said at the beginning, and that is like, why am I a Christian today? Well, because the Holy Spirit opened my eyes to the truth, but even more than that, Colton, because everything this world offers me will fade away. Everything this world offers me ultimately fails. All of it. It may be fun for a while. Yeah. And I know that. Like, I've done some things that I thought they were fun for a while. Yeah. But in the end, they're all destructive. They all hurt, or they all cause hurt to somebody else. And what Jesus said is, I came to give you life, and not just life, abundant life. And so a week like this for me, to come down here and see these amazing people in this amazing place who have amazing dignity and courage and all the things I just talked about, like, that's abundant life.
So, Pastor Rick, I did have one more thing for you, and I wanted to ask you if you have anything you wanted to promote or put out there to all the people watching. We're here to encourage and uplift other people and direct them in a relationship with the Lord. And that's what we're here to really promote. Yeah. Loving God, loving life, and loving people. And so anything that you would like to share or promote, this is an open mic and open camera for you to go ahead and do that.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is that if you live near where I live, if you live in the Lincoln Way area in Illinois, and you don't have a home church, come on out to Grace Fellowship Church. We have our services on Sunday at 10 a.m. on LaPorte Road in Mokina. And if you have a home church, man, dig in, get to know the people there, build relationships, serve in that church. And if you don't like our church, just find a good Bible teaching church and plug in there.
That's awesome, man. You hear that? People over there in Mokina, Illinois, step on over to this man's church. I've gotten to know a wonderful friend this week, and I'm thankful for the relationship that we have. And I know that if you stop in, you'll have a good shepherd to guide you. I've loved and really enjoyed this conversation. I'm thankful that you came to Nicaragua for real. I'm thankful you sat down and did this. I'm very thankful. And I got a great friend out of this, and someone I can call up if I need some wisdom, some advice. I know I can count on you, and that means a lot. And I'm not even just saying this for the camera, like, this is real, you know?
I believe you.
And so that's awesome, and I'm thankful for you. But if you want to follow us on social media, all of the links are in the description. We have Instagram, we have a Facebook page, we have all of those beautiful things. Also, if you want to know more about Healing Rain Ministries, the ministry in which Pastor Rick came down to serve this week in this beautiful missions team, the link is also in the description to our website. You can look at how to give, and you can look at how to be a part of Healing Rain Ministries. During season 1 of the Alive to Love podcast, you can find us right here on YouTube, on Spotify, and we'll see where else I'm able to upload this wonderful podcast. Don't forget to love God, love people, and love life, my friends. Be blessed this week, and we love you, Pastor Rick. Safe flight tomorrow.
Thank you.